The bill before you is about welcoming and engaging families and supporting students across the state. You know, there's so many people to thank who've been part of this process. I do want to thank some of my colleagues, the good member from the 21st and 37th, 41st, and everyone in the 47th, and everyone that's really been part of this bill. But this bill really came from the community. About 5 years ago, I was in Kent, which is part of my district, and it's a very culturally rich city. Our school has over 137 languages spoken. And I was at an agency called Open Doors, and they work with culturally and linguistically diverse families. And many of the families have children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I was in a room full of families on a Saturday, and we were talking about their experience in the schools and whether they felt welcome. And, you know, we talked about IEP and 504, and those are for students with special needs. And as a parent, I can tell you, they are very challenging, the process, this individualized education plans, which are developed for students with special needs. I know people with PhDs and MDs and MSWs that have struggled with this process, but to really imagine that if English wasn't your primary language, how difficult that would be. And the stories that I heard just were heart-wrenching. Parents who had students that left the building and were never notified or didn't feel part of the planning and process of their child's education. I heard from youth that were their own interpreters for either their own IEP or for a sibling. And, you know, I've also talked with a lot of advocates and interpreters who shared their stories that maybe 20 years ago they felt in the same position, and how heart-wrenching and emotional it still is for them to talk about. Mr. Speaker, all parents have the right to information about their child's education in a language they can understand. That's current federal and state law. And the bill before you is really a collaboration to really say, what are the tools and how do we help schools meet families where they're at, help families feel welcome? So there's several aspects I want to talk about. One, it has, I want to acknowledge OSPI and the Office of the Educational Ombuds. They really brought together a language access work group. It was this incredible group of advocates, and I'm here to bring forward the recommendations as well as the families. And what they are doing is they're working together to create a toolkit for schools so that they'll have model policies and procedures and best practices. And so there'll be these templates for schools to adopt, and then they can modify them along the way. It also is about training interpreters. And, you know, they are incredible professionals. And we're so fortunate to have interpreters. And, you know, we have some for the medical field, and there's a very specialized language. Well, we need our interpreters that work in the schools to have the specialized language for the education system. And so the interpreters have been great and so supportive of this bill. We want credentialing, and we want to make sure there's no barriers. We need more interpreters in our schools. And it's also about training. As a proud mom, I have a daughter who's a kindergarten teacher this year, and she has an inclusion classroom. And she was like, how do I learn how to access an interpreter? And so we want to make sure that there's trainings where new teachers can go online and get the information they need and have the tools they need to be able to welcome and involve parents in the educational process. So again, I just want to thank the incredible voices that came forward. I want to thank the families. You know, it's been 5 years. And I just say thank you for staying at the table. And thank you for moving these important policies forward. So I just urge your support, Mr. Speaker.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed, second substitute House Bill 1153 is declared passed.